right, so we're in Genesis 18, and we're moving right along. We started watching Women of Faith TV show on Wonder last night. It's actually Women of Faith. I started watching it with her last night, and so first episode's a little different, but basically what we're going to do today is read through 18 because there's kind of a big chunk to read through, but we're going to break it down, I think. I don't know if we're going to read through the whole thing. We're just going to go through it and see where we get to. So basically, three visitors is the title of my chapter 18. I don't know what you all got, but this is Abraham, and he's sitting at the tent door, and it says right here on the first verse that it's the heat of the day. I could only imagine when I think of the heat of the day, like that's hot, right? I don't like heat that often. I don't like cold either. I like this weather because there's no gas bill and there's no electric bill usually going. This is perfect prime real estate. But what he's doing is it's an ordinary day for him, but it turns into holy ground with these three visitors. What was normal? That's last night. I was in the middle of kind of touching this up. And in that episode that we watched, it was kind of talking about these visitors. The visitors in the show they made them look demonic, which was weird. That was kind of weird. Leprosy, and I was like, oh, that was a little weird. But these three men appear, and they come to him and they said, "The Lord has come near." And those are powerful words that what we're going to read to this. The Lord has come near. We look at our lives, we think about our lives, and can you say that? The Lord has come near my life, or the Lord has come near? I think we really need to look for those moments that he has. And that's how God often works from time to time, is he steps into what's like ordinary of our lives, these ordinary moments, and he turns them into what? Divine appointments. We've been there. We've seen these. Like Emily and I have been in a place, so we're moving for something, going towards something ministry-wise, and we're like, we know God's working here. There's a divine intervention that's happening. He's stepping into what we view as ordinary, and he's making it holy, and these divine appointments. And those are appointments you don't want to miss. It's a man sitting. It was a meal that's being prepared, and this is a conversation that Genesis 18 is a conversation that's happening. And so in the middle of this conversation, God speaks. He speaks through these men. He speaks to them, and he promises, and he's searching their hearts, and he's also revealing justice in this moment, because that's who God is. He's not going to be everything but justice, because he is just too. He's the whole package, and we got to take God for what he is and what he's worth, and accept everything that God has to offer. And this chapter shows us that God visits his people. We tend to sit there and say, no, he doesn't. He still does. And God keeps his promises, but God exposes his hidden unbelief. He exposes unbelief that's hidden, and he also reveals that he is righteous and he's just and he's merciful. Those are beautiful moments of who God is, in the moments of Sarah and Abraham's lives, right? And so this is not just about, it starts off with sitting outside the tent, but it's not just about Abraham's tent. This is about a living God that is still coming near to his people. That's a beautiful thing we have to hang on to, that God comes near. So can I get someone to read chapter 18, verses 1 through 5 for me? Genesis 18, verses 1 through 5.
I'll wash your feet and rest under his tree. Something to eat so you can be refreshed and go on your way. Now that you have come to your servant. Very well, the answer is yours.
All right, thank you. So this is beautiful. This is probably, I figure, one of the most beautiful statements that comes out of this is it starts off with what? The Lord appeared. That is reassuring, isn't it? And so how many times as Christians are we sitting here waiting, like, where are you at, God? Where are you at? We can't see you. Jesus, where are you at? Where are you at? Where are you at? In this moment, the Lord appeared to Abraham. I always get those backwards. Abraham. And so in that moment, this is what we need in our lives as Christians. The church needs this. Families need this. We don't need these routines that we fall victim to. We're so autopilot in a lot of ways. And we also think that we need better systems and better organizations. We need better plans. But in the end of the day, what we need is we need the Lord to appear. And so in that moment, we see throughout the Bible that God appears to people in different ways, doesn't he? He appears to people in the mountains. He appears to them in temples. He appears to them in circumstances and situations. But Abraham here, he's not on top of a mountain. He's not in a temple. He's not leading this great army. He's actually in his home. He's in the tent. He's in a doorway. He's sitting there at the heat of the day. And so God meets him there. A lot of times we position ourselves or think we have to position ourselves in this place that we have to be a certain place where God's going to meet us. This shows us here that he's meeting you where you're at. And that should encourage somebody here today. That's encouraging to me. We want the Lord in the dramatic moments. And sometimes that drama can get poured on real quick, you know. Emily laughs at me sometimes. See, that was really dramatic. And all you can do is laugh. I'm like, because it was ridiculous. But he's stepping into his world. He's stepping into this dusty, hot mess of life right now. And that's what the Lord's doing is he came near and he came near in the middle of a tired afternoon. He came in the middle of your routine week. He came into your ordinary season. He came into your traumas, your fears, your pride. He's coming into this. And so Abraham lifts his eyes up. He lifts his eyes up and he sees 3 men standing there. So Abraham lifts his eye and he runs. He runs. He sees these men standing there and he runs to them. He meets them and he bows. He bows to himself. He surrenders and then he urges them to stay. He offers water, rest, bread, and comfort. He's meeting all the physical needs of these strangers, these people. But Abraham here, I love this because it's what it's capturing is he responds with immediacy. He's not waiting. He's not being reserved about it. He's pursuing with this urgency and this humility and hospitality. Rebecca's things she said stuck with me as you're only so many minutes away from hospitality. This is a good example of this because when God draws near, this is the offsetting part is casual traditional religion will not show up. It just doesn't do. It doesn't happen. So when God's drawing near, these people sitting in church pews today, something's going to be met, right? Something's going to be challenged. Pride bows. Our prideful nature bows. But then when God draws near, our indifference has to be challenged. We're indifferent. We can be indifferent all the time, but it has to die in our souls because that indifference is what can cast into rebellious or unbelief or disbelief or shallow faith. So Abraham didn't say, if I get around to it, maybe I will honor the Lord, did he? He didn't just sit there and say, well, maybe when I get to it, when I got a chance. No, he ran. He ran. He ran. And you've heard me say this before because some people who want blessings, they don't pursue God. Right? Some people that want the promises of God, they don't make room for the presence of God. People that they want the move of God, but they're too busy to recognize that he's there. People are too busy to recognize that the Lord has appeared. And look how easy it is to get so discombobulated with life. And Abraham's teaching us that if the Lord is near and you recognize, you lift your eyes to the Lord, then you have to respond. An action has to happen. And in that moment, we run. Will someone read verses 6-8? He's meeting him in a serving mentality, that hospitality moment. There's hospitality that comes in everything that we do. That's what happens. He serves these visitors and he tells Sarah to prepare things quickly. There's an urgency to this preparation. There's an urgency. And then he runs to his herd and he chooses the most tender calf and he's going to prepare it. And he sets the butter, the milk, and the meat before them. I love nothing more than my wife is working in the kitchen. She's making food. She's blessing us with that grace. But then she brings me a plate or asks me if I want to bring a plate. I love that. I cherish that. Really, it's a hospitality nature of who my wife is. Makes me feel all sorts of special that she can inconvenience her time. She's tired. She's worked all day and she's still being hospitable towards her husband. I love that. So her hospitality cost her something. So did Abraham's. It cost something. This is an intentional moment. It's an intentional moment of honoring. He's honoring the guests. Emily was honoring me by, bringing me a plate. But this is actually active service. Who all in this room has been to Emmaus? Walked it. Okay. So we understand from that moment what active service is, right? A true worship it's not just us talking about it. Like we could talk all day long and never actually have action behind it. And I think that is the trap the devil has a lot of people in, because we're talking about true worship. We're still reaching people because we're being intentional. We're not just putting something on a screen that is attracting to the fleshly desire. Be intentional with the people you're pursuing and not suffice them with technology or an image or this and this and this and this. And so what are some examples that you can think of that you see that is the opposite of what I just said? It was true worship. If true worship's never just talk.
My notes because
So true worship is never just talk. What what are some things that you've seen in your life that you can kind of show you that example that you've experienced? What are real life scenarios that expose the difference between talking about worship and actually living it? What have you all seen in your lives, or what are you all, maybe not what you just seen, what are you guilty of? I wrote out a couple examples in my own life. I've seen people that come in on Sunday singing with passion, singing for the Lord, but then as soon as church is over, they are the ones that are tearing down people, gossiping about people, stirs up division all week long. That's not worship, even though Sunday they spent worshiping, but that was more of a performance, right? Versus true worship. What are some other things that you've all seen in your lives or experiences with church or church people or your own lives? Because if you can't expose your life in front of the church where you're supposed to share this life with, then could you imagine what that would have been like if the disciples couldn't have been honestly open with Jesus Christ? Then it just becomes a performance. So Abraham didn't just play with these individuals that he was visiting. He wanted them to be warmed and be filled, and he wanted to be relational. He gave, he served, he walked with them, he talked with them, he gave them their best. He gave their best. How much, some of these churches, they do get the best. They get the best over people, but some of these smaller churches, are you really giving the best of what you have, or are you just giving your leftovers and what's broken that you would just donate to the dump? Right? Are you giving your best? Is it your best time? Is it your best, whatever you donate, your service, whatever it is? Are you giving the best of you? There's power in no, isn't there? Rebecca, are you stretched thin right now?
maybe.
All right. We got to think about that. Is what I'm giving the Lord my best, or is it just filling a quota? Abraham gives quickly. He gives joyfully. He gives his best, yes. And it was immediate. That's powerful. That's a powerful moment. He's a man of promise. He's a man of covenant. He's a man of faith, but yet he's still willing to serve. How many times do we get to a certain percentage of where we have achieved this status that we lose that sense of urgency? And I love the fact that some people believe that maturity means that they no longer need to do lowly things. And that goes reference to sitting in these elderly groups, these geriatric groups where they're ready to die to meet Jesus, but they're not doing anything today for Jesus. I like to think that the older I get, I want to serve harder. The closer I get to Jesus, the more I need to resemble Jesus. The more I need to do for the kingdom. But sometimes these rooms get full of guys, women, men with swollen heads, right? I've been a Christian for 25, 30 years at this same church, but have you shared the gospel one time? Or you just had a perfect attendance for 25 years and you've tithed a certain amount, so now you're claiming property on a place that was never yours. So here, when a heart has truly encountered God, it's going to know how to serve. You're going to know how to have hospitality. Will someone read verses 9 through 10 for me?
Where is your wife Sarah? They asked him. Where is the tent? There in tent, he answered. The Lord said, I will certainly come back to you in about a year's time, and your wife Sarah will have a son. Now Sarah was listening at an entrance of the tent behind him. Abraham and Sarah were old and then on in years. Sarah had passed the age of childbearing.
Awesome. So this is actually the center of the whole chapter, is that God's repeating the promise that's already been given. Sarah will have a son. Why do you think this matters? Why do you think this matters? Sarah and Abraham are what? So what are they thinking? It's crazy. It's impossible, right? That this is impossible. They're old. Their bodies are marked by the times that they lived. Circumstances are preaching in this moment hopelessness. We've gone this long, we've gone this long. Biology's saying no, and it's been saying no. But God's saying yes. And that's where we have to do it, is God says yes. So someone read 11 through 15 for me. I think, Rebecca, you read 11, didn't you? Read 12 through 15. Can you imagine that conversation? So Sarah's hearing this promise from inside the tent door. She laughs. But why does she laugh? What caused the stir of laughter in her soul? It is, like Rebecca, crazy. What is that word when we doubt something? Unbelief. Her laugh was a laugh of unbelief, nothing less. She's saying, I don't believe in what the Lord's saying. We're all guilty of that moment. In her heart, she's still saying what humanity's saying, what the biology's saying. I'm old. This is crazy. This is not going to, shall I have pleasure in this? Like, I'm this old. Am I going to have pleasure even if I have a child? But that's what we do, is we filter through human limitations. That's what unbelief does. It puts it back in your lens of viewing and not God's grandeur, his sovereignty, right? But it starts with inward reasoning. So many people, that's where relapse starts. An inward reasoning with thinking that I can do this, thinking I can control this just this one time, just this one slip up, but then it becomes the best you, at best you, and you're back where you were started. It's inward reasoning that leads to relapse. It's inward reasoning that leads to unbelief. And she laughed inwardly, but who heard it? God. And that's a part of this chapter that we really need to hang on to, is the privacy of your heart is still exposed to heaven. The privacy of our hearts, God knows. We cannot hide. What does David say? In heaven or Sheol? We can't hide from you, God. I cannot hide from you. I know everything. He knows everything. Is anything too hard for the Lord? No. That should be the explanation point of this chapter. Is anything too hard for the Lord? The answer is no. But Sarah denies saying it. I laughed not. Why? Why? Why did she lie? Is Sarah a liar? She was afraid. Fear took over. And when fear takes over, we do funny things when we're afraid. Fear often makes people dishonest. Look at a kid. Did you take that? I know. They're looking to blame everyone else but themselves, because fear makes us dishonest. And so we have to be careful, because what is the Lord doing? He's exposing the heart here. He's exposing it, and the flesh was trying to cover it. That's what we talked about in our group before this. If we allow someone to operate in that sense of delusion, they become delusional, and they're not going to be willing to receive anything. And Nate was saying that's an important part, that we got to be willing to receive and be willing to look at. And that's what God's doing here, is he's saying, no, you did laugh. I'm not going to argue with you, God. You know me better than anything. But her first offense was she lied about it to God. And that mimics the human nature. Will someone read verses 16 through 19 for me? Thank you so much. The Lord says, shall I hide from Abraham the thing which I do? That's remarkable. Why is that remarkable? That's powerful. But why? Why would God initiate that type of mindset, as like, do I need to hide this from Abraham or not? God's God. But what's the why to that? Okay. What else? Let's go deeper than family. God. You're almost there. You're almost there. There it is. So the why to this is, why is he going to hide this or not hide this from him, is because God made a covenant for Abraham in the purpose of which he's going to operate on this earth. That's it. That's what scripture says. And so God is going to surely make Abraham a great nation. So if he's going to make a great nation, then all these nations on earth are going to be blessed by him through God. And then he says, for I know him, then he will command his children and his household after him, and they shall keep the way of the Lord. So he's chosen for this covenant responsibility. That covenant, what do we say, Nate? What'd you say? Covenancy. That covenant brings intimacy. So circumcision is like, you have to be really intimate with the person to either know it happened or not happened. So here, there's that intimacy between this covenant. And then I love this because God's using Abraham to shape his house. What a blessing that is this moment of responsibility that we all share equally today. We're not only shaping the house of God, we're shaping the house of our own living, right? Our own tents, our own living rooms, our own. Will someone read verses 20 through 21? I love that, Emily. That was great. You were processing through it. I was like, I knew you had it. You're just right there, and I love that. 20 through 21.
The Lord also said, the cries against Sodom and Gomorrah are very great. Their sin is so bad that I will go down and see for myself. I want to see if what they have done is as bad as the cries that have reached me. If it is not, then I will let.
Their sin was grievous. And we're going to see what happens coming up. And this is the last part. We're going to read the rest of it. Will someone read 20 through to 33? Go all the way through to the end. Yep. 25. Okay, so for the longest time, I'm like, who the heck is Abraham? And why is God entertaining this? It wasn't until this past 2 weeks that it really clicked in my life. You know what this is the most powerful picture of? Intercession. This is something that is very weak and limited in today's church body. Intercessory prayer, intercession, going on behalf of someone. And so Abraham, he's standing before the Lord, pleading for Sodom, pleading for are you going to punish both sides? If there's this and this, God knows the hearts of those men. But Abraham is still pleading on behalf of that individual. And he asks, will you destroy the righteous with the wicked? He appeals to God for this justice. And he says, shall not the judge of the earth do right? That's strong faith. Abraham is showing the strong faith in that moment. He's not correcting God. That's not the conversation that's happening here. What he's doing is he's appealing to what he knows about God. I know you're just and I know you're merciful, God. But he pleads for the 50 righteous, the 45, the 40, the 30, the 20, the 10. And that's a boldness. That takes courage. There's actually a humble nature to who Abraham is here, but this is this reverent intercession on behalf. How many people out there in this world today need someone to pray for? How many people here in this world have no one praying for them? Maybe you're the only one that's going to pray for him. Maybe God put on your heart to pray for that individual. I hate to say it. Look, I think I'm the only person praying for my mom. I don't know if there's anyone else in this world that cares about her to pray for her. And the only prayer I have for her is that the Lord touches her heart before she takes her last breath. This prayer is not to rebuild this relationship. This prayer is for me not to get enmeshed in her care plan. This prayer is for the Lord to draw her heart away from what she has known to who he is. No one else is probably praying for her. Think about what people are going through. Think about who we need to have this intercessory prayer for, and we stand between a holy God and sinful people. What's the church do? They throw rotten tomatoes at the sinful people, but they should be praying in intercessory prayer. God, this individual, God, these groups of individuals, God, these individuals. Because the reality of it, the harvest is there. Not here. And look, Abraham's pleading reveals that he believes God delights in righteousness. That's so powerful. And mercy more than destruction. God does not want to destroy what he created. But sometimes his hand is forced. If I'm just, I have to be just. I cannot not be just, because then that takes away an attribute of who I say I am. And if I'm love, then I have to be just. If we have love without justness or justice, then what are we doing? If we have love without justice, what are we doing? What happens to that child, right? So here's the lesson for us here at Rise Up Ministries today, is to know that today too many believers are walking in darkness. Too many believers eat up darkness. I mean, if you look at any comment that you find on social media, you show how dark and evil people are. It hurts for anyone to give praise. And when that Christian gives praise, then they get attacked in that little forum. And the only reason why I'm bringing social media on, because that is our life today. Relationships individually and intentional with face value are too far and few between. And also, we do have an impact on social media. I've heard too many stories of the impact. But too many can talk about how bad the culture truly is. But here's the kicker. How often do you fall on your face and cry out for the souls? Well, this world is just coming. This, and this. But when have you fell on your face and you've prayed for those individuals and you prayed for those other souls? Or are you just you're better at criticizing Sodom than pleading for Sodom? I have to challenge myself here, because this is the moment where Abraham stood there talking to God, interceding on behalf of something that God was going to distribute punishment to already. That's the heart of intercession. Intercessory prayer is something that is often missed. And that's what we get in Genesis 18. This points beyond Abraham. It points to God. This whole Bible and every story in here and every person in here that's used or not used, it always points to God. This Bible is not ever intended for it to point to yourself. It points to Jesus Christ, and it always points back to God. So Abraham, he's pleading on this basis for God to give mercy and to be just. Jesus satisfied the justice. He satisfied the mercy on the cross. We're blessed to have Jesus Christ. And what happened on the cross? See, Jesus is that righteous one. He's the true righteous one. He gave himself for who? But mostly he gave it to the wicked. And we're all in that category, aren't we? He's the one that took himself to the point of being obedient to the point of death upon the cross for Tina, for Rebecca. That's the gospel. What are we going to do with this? How are we going to live our lives with this? Are we going to continue to sit there and dibble dabble and sprinkle a little Jesus in our lives, but then live like hell? Am I still a liar? Do I manipulate? Do I maneuver? Do I take circumstances and let other people know half truths of my life, but in the end of it, you're still as ugly as you ever were? Or are you so self-absorbed in your own mentalities that you don't look in the mirror anymore because it's so ugly and you're afraid to see what you need to see? Or do you keep falling back to an idol or false addictions, right? Falling back to food, falling back to my kids, being number one, being my idol. We're all guilty here. It's not one person, it's many, it's a multitude. That's why we need Jesus. It's why we need intercessory people. So pray for those people. Will someone close us in prayer, please?